Hello, everyone, and welcome to AWS and No Code, making big data accessible across your organization. I'm Greg Hackenberg, Senior Marketing Campaigns Manager at Quickbase, and I'm excited to be introducing our session today. We're joined by Chintan Sanghavi, Senior Partner Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services. At Amazon Web Services, he helps ISVs to differentiate their solution on AWS using AWS services. Prior to AWS, Chintan was working with investment banks and consulting firms as an enterprise architect. He has experience in developing architecture for complex transformation initiatives, interfacing with multiple vendors, multiple systems, and using heterogeneous technologies. We're also joined by Brian Titonio, Solutions Consultant at Quickbase. As a solutions consultant with over 10 years in customer-facing roles, Bryant educates customers on best practices for building Quickbase applications. Some areas he has helped customers with are data modeling, development of scalable applications, and Quickbase pipelines. In addition, we're joined by John Karras, Product Manager at Quickbase. His work is focused on two areas: building new ways to surface data and analytics to customers about their apps, users, and integrations, and driving development of additional integration channels with Quickbase pipelines, allowing customers to get more diverse data sources included in their Quickbase workflows. So before we get started, a couple housekeeping items. You're watching this on On24, which offers lots of options for customization. You can find a how-to in related content. Also, please use the Q&A widget for questions throughout the session, and we'll answer some live at the end. Today, we'll cover the following topics: the case for operational agility, your data strategy, no code as an agility layer. Then we'll jump into a live demo that shows how all of these things interact. We'll recap shortly at the end and then have time for Q&A. Now, before we jump in, we have a quick poll around the challenges you and the audience are facing today around insights, information systems, and data massaging. So we'll take about 30 seconds. You can actually click on the screen and choose the challenge you're facing today. The first one is around insights, and that's really the time to insight being too high, really needing to find new ways to get business insights. There is a challenge around inflexible systems, being unable to maintain and enhance systems at the rate that your business requires. And then there's a data massaging challenge. It's really about connecting, blending, and transforming data to your business needs being really too complex. So I'll give you a few more seconds to please click and choose the one or the ones that apply to you, and then we'll see the answers to the poll. Well, I see people are still filling it in, so I'll give you a few more seconds here. It'll be interesting as we go through the session, certainly keep these in mind and how they might apply to different parts, whether we're talking about data strategy, we're talking about that agility layer of no-code applications, how things connect to each other. Keep this in mind as we go through. Well, I see
Get
people
those
are
responses in. We're looking forward to your feedback.
Oh, still bumping up here. Before the session, we were discussing which one we think might be the most prevalent challenge, and we're sort of evenly split across the presenters here. So we're very interested in how you all respond. All right, so it looks like the votes have stabilized, and we're going to move to see the results here. All right, the biggest challenge being data massaging. John Karras for the win there. The next one in line is inflexible systems, being unable to maintain and enhance those systems at the rate of the speed of business. And then the one at the bottom here, very close though, I will call out, is insights and time to insights. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand it over to John to talk about the case for operational agility.
Thanks so much for having me, Greg. Hello to all the attendees in the audience. We are very excited to have you today. We got a great session lined up. I'm super excited. The first section we'll talk about is the case for operational agility. So everyone's had a very kind of tumultuous year since last February or March, with COVID disrupting almost all of our businesses. In one way or another, your business was likely impacted. Hopefully your employees and team members are all doing fine, and their families as well. And then on the business front, with all your processes and the way that things have been done, we've needed to evolve. There's really three areas now that all of our customers and businesses are focused on. The need to do more with less. You're trying to make the best use of all the resources you have. You've also noticed that there's an accelerated pace and scale of transformation. Things that used to work in the old world may not work now in this new world. These traditional resource-intensive strategies, they don't scale. And this is really what's been highlighted in the past year. Ultimately, what we want to have happen for all these customers, all of our companies involved on the phones, right? We want you to not just survive COVID, we want you to thrive in it. This is actually an opportunity to accelerate your company's digital transformation efforts. There was a McKinsey study that was recently published on, hey, what is the effect and rate of change that COVID accelerated? In most scenarios for customer interactions, supply chain interactions, and internal communication interactions, that rate of change has accelerated by 3 to 4 years compared to what it would be without COVID. So you can see how everything has drastically changed in a short 15 to 18 months. Many customers, many companies are now realizing this. Earlier this year, we did a study with Harvard Business Review. We actually surveyed 500 global executives, and the results were we tried to understand what are the top priorities and business goals for executives. Resilience and agility came to the top and bubbled up as some of the major areas that our CIOs and executives are really caring about. 53% said that improving business continuity and resiliency is one of their primary business goals. And when we compared that to a pre-COVID survey, that's a 33 percentage point swing. So dramatic increase, right, in terms of, hey, we need to make sure our business can continue running. Additionally, we had 42% of those respondents say that increasing agility associated with operations is now a primary focus. That was a 12-point swing. So you can see how agility and resiliency are paramount now in this world of ours. What this comes out to is having operational agility is what your team needs. For many of you, this may be the first time you're hearing this term, right? Operational agility. It's something that we at Quickbase really love and really think that we are the best solution for it. And what this is a company's ability to flex and adapt to the market in real time. Now, if you can do this, you're going to have essentially 3 different areas that are going to be impacted. You can now leverage your existing technology investments in a better way, taking that data, uniting it, and not having to make massive new investments on these fronts. You're also going to be able to make faster decisions. So you're going to be able to have real-time insights into your operations in the folks' hands that need it. And lastly, we know things change. With operational agility, it's expected, and really the core part of it is to be able to flex and adapt to that change. This is going to let you safely build new solutions at enterprise scale. The way that I like to think about operational agility is 3 core layers. Ultimately, what we're going to be able to deliver is digitizing and adapting your unique workflows to the core platforms that are really tough to adapt and change. In the middle of it and at the core, we have our systems of record, right? These are your kind of go-to tools in terms of where that key information lives. Think your ERP tool, maybe SAP. You might have Oracle involved. You may have a CRM involved, right? These are systems of record that house very important information, and you want to make sure that it gets to the right places. On top of that, you likely have a cloud ecosystem of tools, applications, and maybe point solutions that are involved in tapping into that data. These are often, really useful. However, there's such big sprawl often in this scenario, and many companies now have over, 1,500 tools involved at their company trying to tap into information in these places. And ultimately, what I think is the most important layer is it's great to have data and tools, right? But what you're ultimately trying to do is build a unique process to match to exactly how you, your team members, and your customers want that workflow to go. This involves really matching things to how your employees want to operate. And at this level, that's where we start thinking about, hey, what are the no-code platforms out there, and how can that help with that operational agility layer? At the core of it, though, right, as we come back to that center of system of record, if you don't have your data strategy aligned and in the right places, going to the right sources, going to the right systems, right, having a strategy around how you're going to use that system of record data is absolutely foundational. To keep articulating that and showcase kind of what that means to have a data strategy, I'd like to now bring Chintan to the stage to highlight that and how AWS can help on that front.
Thank you, John. So in next few slides, I'll help you understand why we need a data strategy and how AWS can help you in building this data strategy. So few years ago, we used to analyze data from relational databases, and this data was stored into tables and column structure, and it was very structured in the nature. Now we have more unstructured and semi-structured data, and we have this data coming from, say, streaming devices or from social media channels or from application-specific logs or chat messages and etc. So overall, the diversity of the data is much higher than what it was few years ago. In addition to the diversity, overall volume of the data is also very high. Now, in order to analyze this data, in order to store this data, we need to have a data platform which can scale based on the requirements of the data, which can help us to store different types of the data, and hence we need a data platform. Now, when you have this kind of data platform and a growing data as well as a growing demand for the analytics, the cost associated with this data platform will also grow significantly higher. And hence we need a data strategy which will help us to keep cost under the control, which will help us to define or create a data platform which will scale according to the data requirements, and we'll also be able to store different types of the data. Now let's see how companies are creating these different types of the data platform and how and what is their approach today. So in past, companies have created data silos, and these data silos were created based on a department. Let's say, for example, finance will have its own data silo created. And sometimes companies have also created data silos based on the new sources of the data. Right? So if the data is coming from, say, web or sensor, then they create a separate data silo. Now, if companies has to analyze this data and see what is happening or what is the kind of data stored into two different data silos, it becomes really difficult. And sometimes it requires migration of the data from one data silo to another data silo. And that can be very time consuming and challenging exercise. In order to avoid this, now companies are creating data lakes. Now, when they create a data lake, they can store a data from all these data silos into one single data lake. Right? And they can create a data catalog on top of it, which will help them to understand what kind of data is stored into it, and which will help people to analyze this data and use it in a very effective way. Once they have created this data lake, they can add various business analytics related tools to understand and analyze this data. They can also add various machine learning and artificial intelligence related capabilities on top of this data. Right? So this is how companies are evolving from, say, creating a data silo to creating a data lake. Now, in order to create a good data lake, it should have 4 key qualities. Right? So one is it should be very easy to build. Right? And in the next few slides, I'll help you understand how AWS can help you in building the good data lake. Secondly, the data lake should be secure. Right? So sometimes you might have, say, regulatory and compliance related requirements, and AWS can help you in securing your data lake or by encrypting your data within the data lake. AWS can also provide various authentication, authorization related services on top of your data lake, which will help you to make sure that only the right and required people can access the data. Right? So this is how you can secure the data lake. Thirdly, your data lake should be very comprehensive and should be able to store data in an open format. And when you create a data lake via using AWS technologies, you store data into a text files or into the Parquet format, which is an open format, and you should be able to use any technology to connect to these data lakes and analyze your data. Lastly, your data lake should be scalable, right, and also cost effective. And AWS provides various cost-saving plans, right, as well as reserved instances and spot instances, which will make sure that your cost of the data lake is effective, right? And AWS also provides various auto-scaling technologies as well, which will help you to scale your data lake based on your data. So if you have a more number of users coming, then you'll be able to scale. If you have, say, more large data coming, then it will be able to scale based on your data requirements. So this is how AWS can help you in building and data lake. Now let's see what are the services provided by AWS to build your data lake. So let's start from a very basic one where you need to migrate data, right? So you may have data on your premise, or you may have data into your existing databases or from some streaming sources. So and AWS provides AWS data migration service, which will help you to migrate data from your current database to the data lake. If you have data stored in your on-premise environment, then AWS provides services like Snowball and Snowmobile, which will help you to migrate data from your on-premise environment to the AWS environment. If you have any streaming sources like a sensors, or if you want to tap into the clickstream related data, then AWS provides services like Kinesis and Managed Kafka services, which will help you to integrate your streaming sources with the data lakes. Once you have identified the data movement technology or data movement related services, you can use, say, Amazon S3 or lake formation to create the data lake. So this will create a lake infrastructure where you can store the data. And once you have stored data, you can use various analytics related services provided by AWS, like Amazon EMR or Redshift, which will help you to create analytics on top of this data. Once you have created analytics, you might want to visualize this data, and AWS provides services like QuickSight, which will help you to create very interactive charts and dashboards. Right? You may also want to add any machine learning related technologies, and that's where AWS provides SageMaker, Comprehend, Recognition kind of services, and you can use these services to add any machine learning related technologies or capabilities on top of it. Thirdly, if you want to monetize this data, if you have any requirement where you want to send this data to your customers, you can use AWS Data Exchange, and you can use AWS Data Exchange to send data to your customers, and you can monetize this data. So these are the few key services provided by AWS to build your data lake. Now let's see how some of these services work together. So as I mentioned, you can have multiple types of the sources. You can have relational databases, you can have, say, streaming devices, or you can have web and etc. You can use AWS Glue, which will help you to integrate these sources and move data from these sources to the S3 data lake. You can also use Kinesis to stream data from your streaming sources to the S3 data lake. Once you have stored data into this data lake, right, you can use various security and encryption related services on top of data on S3 data, which will help you to make your data lake very secure. As a part of this entire ingestion and creating data lake process, you can also apply various transformation and cleansing technologies. Right now, we see that data massaging is one of the key challenges that you have. Right now, you can use Glue to transform your data, so you can take data from one format and you can store it into another format. You can also apply some basic transformation related services on top of this data and transform your data based on your own requirement. Once you have created data lake, you can use a partner product like Quickbase, which will connect to S3 data lake and pull data from the S3 and create analytics on top of it. In addition to Quickbase, you can also use AWS services like, say, EMR or QuickSight, and you can use it to create interactive charts and analyze and create analytics on top of this data. So this is how AWS can help you in getting data from your current sources, creating a data lake, and with the partner and other services, you can create analytics on top of this data. Now, let's see very specific to SAP related data. How can you extract data from SAP? So there are two ways you can extract data from SAP. So one is you can use either an APIs provided by SAP to extract the data. When you use APIs provided by SAP to extract the data, you did not have to worry about the relationship between this data, and you can get a pre-relation built data from your SAP database. You can also use application level extractors, right? And you can extract data directly from, say, SAP HANA and other databases. In this scenario, you will have to think about the relationship and how you can maintain the relationship between the data. And thirdly and last is, in addition to the SAP data, you might also need data from other sources, say, for example, your Oracle databases or from your Postgres databases. And you can use database level extractor to connect to these databases and extract the data. Once you have gathered the data from all these three different ways, you can use QuickSight to analyze this data, create reports and charts on top of it. In next few slides, John and Brand will help you to understand how you can use Quickbase in addition to SAP and AWS related technologies to get the insights and analyze this data. Yeah. John, Brand.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chintan. Really great understanding there of what you need to deliver a data strategy. I'm going to go in now a little bit deeper on, hey, why do we need no code as that operational and agility layer? In that same study that we did earlier this year with Harvard Business Review, right, where we surveyed our 500 global executives, one of the outcomes there that we uncovered is, in order to achieve a digital transformation at scale and successfully, it really requires a dual track approach. What do we mean by dual track approach? There's really two aspects. One is you're going to need large scale transformation. So it can't just be, two people in a one-off kind of effort trying to do a transformation. You need a large scale transformation effort. And then that is traditionally led by your IT team, right? How do we get that out there? Deployed at scale by your IT team. On the other side, you now need a rapid cycle innovation layer. This is where more of your business team comes in. So if you can have your IT team and your business team working in harmony, right? One managing the large scale side, one managing the rapid cycle innovation that and you need to adjust and continually refine and perfect over time. That's kind of what's going to make it successful. 92% of these executives agreed that the large scale aspect is needed. And only 31% said that the rapid cycle innovation is actually being deployed at their company. So there's a disconnect here of both of these aspects being needed, but not actually having a strategy or a plan for it. This is where our no code aspect can kind of come in. There's ultimately three different areas of core problems that this is going to help solve. Number one, you have those core systems of record and data sources, right? You have things like SAP. You have things like Salesforce and Oracle, right? These are things that you've already invested lots of money into. You have great data in there, but it's oftentimes inflexible to get what you need done. On top of that, right, many companies have now a IT-owned data lake, right? You've taken that data, got it to a place where it's accessible to many of your developer folks and things like that, which is great. However, there's still a layer missing to get it out there to your business teams as well and tap into that valuable information. And then on top of that, on top of that, you've built these solutions, or some of us, some companies don't even have these point solutions yet and are still using spreadsheets or email, right? And it's very tough to manage. It can get extremely expensive by having so many tools involved, and there's lots of errors and invisible work. So when you have these kind of three areas, this is going to ultimately create a disconnect between IT and your business needs. Let's see how we can kind of tackle that and where a no-code aspect might come in. In this area now, we've talked about these three areas. Here's how a no-code platform can help you out. Number one, we're going to be able to tap into that information either directly or through your data lake to those core sources. What this is going to enable you to do is enhance and extend the power and capabilities of information that resides in your systems of record. You're also going to be able to now have a collaborative and real-time data insights layer. Yes, you can now tap into that data lake. Now it goes from being an IT-owned data lake and kind of professional developers operating in there to a extended, collaborative, and extending that information out to your business teams. And lastly, instead of having 1,500 point solutions, email processes, and spreadsheet processes, you now have a comprehensive platform involved where you can build 1, 2, 3, I don't know, hundreds of different apps to solve your different workflows and automate them as well. Ultimately, what this is going to enable and deliver is an increase in connection between your IT and business teams, right? This is going to actually drive both the large-scale transformation and rapid cycle innovation up to deliver that operational agility that your company needs. To deliver something like this, we believe that there are 3 pillars of a no-code tool that you should have involved. Number 1 is people, right? A no-code platform is rooted in being able to empower your people. There's a reason why we love and name our conference Empower every year, right? We are trying to empower your people to build the best processes out there. Ultimately, if you've heard from some of our builders, they're very excited, and I actually might even say they have fun on our platform building these apps. Additionally, you want to be able to access information, right? We showed how vital that information is to you, and you want to be able to massage and manipulate it, right? We had, I think it was 60 or 70% of our respondents say that data massaging is such a area that they have struggles with at their company, right? Being able to tap into that organization, being able to tap into that information in your organization the way that you need to is super important. And lastly, at the bottom, you want to be able to take an idea, right? It could just be a prototype in your head. It could be a process that you want to test out. You want to be able to quickly get that idea out there and built and progress it all the way to an enterprise level implementation. These are what the 3 pillars kind of that I like to think about of a no-code platform. And it's no surprise that we believe Quickbase is the core solution and best solution for that. To dive a little deeper on what our values are in the product, let me show you what I mean. At the bottom, we have a Quickbase foundation, right? We are an in-memory proprietary database, relational database. You can connect tables, right? We have tables and information that you can flow from different one table to another, ultimately delivering a complete and concise app. This is rooted in world-class security, reliability, scalability, and performance. We're pretty much unmatched in these areas. On top of this foundation, we have 4 different product pillars. The first is our creator area. This is what lets you build complex data workflows and applications. You can quickly add a field, right? You can quickly create a formula. You can quickly do almost anything you want with moving data, editing data, transforming data. Many of the folks in this audience I looked at the attendee list. I've seen many of those names before. Super powerful builders and creators already building great solutions. On top of that, we have an insights layer too, an insights aspect. We have reporting and charting capabilities, right? We have these awesome new dashboard capabilities that Brian's going to showcase to us later today in our demo. And this is really a great way for our customers to not only capture that data, but also understand and analyze and get insights from it. In addition, right, we talked about how vital data is and information. Being able to connect to the data that you want in the way that you want is extremely important. Ultimately, we want to be able to let you free that data up and extend it and automate it in new ways. 2 of the areas that really come to mind for connections for me are RESTful APIs, right? If you're a professional developer or have some experience with APIs, you can use our powerful API capabilities. And my probably favorite area of our platform right now is pipelines. Brian's going to give you an awesome demo in a few minutes of all the different areas and kind of world of possibilities here with a no-code integration tool. So now you have your citizen builders and your citizen integrators at your company being able to free data, use logic on top of it, create different processes the way that you want, all in a no-code manner. And lastly, one of the most paramount things, especially as we think about how security is vital in today's ecosystem, is our governance aspect. We enable you to deploy safe, secure citizen automation at enterprise-wide scale. We're going to showcase some of our role-based access controls in our demo, ultimately allowing different roles, right? Whether it's a manager, an employee, or with the powerful role-based access controls that we have, you can safely and securely bring customers into your workflows. which is, just an absolutely delight to have and simplify the aspects of your processes at your organization. So enough of me talking about what Quickbase is. Let's actually dive in and kind of see what that live demo is and looks like. I'd like to welcome Brian to the stage to talk about a use case that we're going to go through, and then also bring us through a live demo.
Awesome. Thanks, John. I'm excited to be here. And for those that are in the crowd that are new, welcome. So for today's demonstration, what we'll do and what we'll show, I should say, is how we're going to extract data from Amazon S3 and integrate that into our unique workflow within Quickbase. So we have an application in Quickbase that is centered around this use case. So the scenario that we have is a company named Metal Mart, and the company is a metal wholesaler, and that's the example that we're using. And what they do is they buy on, they actually produce steel, and they sell that steel to customers who then use that steel to manufacture goods. Each purchase order can have up to one line item. So let's think through, Quickbase will be able to, in the back end, take those purchase orders and then relate the exact line items to that purchase order. Where are we getting that data from? As Chintan had mentioned earlier, we have ERP systems where we can use to gather or export that data. So we have the purchase order and line item information sourced from our SAP. This is just an example ERP system that we're using. Obviously, you can export your data from any ERP system. And the challenges that we're looking to solve for here is that we want to be able to have a flexible layer to analyze and inform if we have enough inventory to serve those orders. So if we have purchase orders that are received from customers, we'll obviously have inventory on the back end that we want to make sure customers are able to we can fill those orders. And then once those purchase orders are complete, we want to be able to let that customer know so that way they can have their own extended dashboard view into the application. So I'm going to go over in the next slide just kind of the process of the flow of data. So let's take a look at our step one here. So step one, as I mentioned before, right, this ERP system that we're using, an example is SAP. Reasons is we know most customers are using that. And what we're extracting from this source is our purchase orders and line item information. The second step that we have here is our Amazon Simple Storage, so S3. And essentially what we're doing is we're extracting that data and we're storing that into our data lake. And for the purpose of this use case, we're actually taking a subset of the data from our purchase order and line item data from our SAP. And we want to use that information to actually help with our business need. And so we'll probably have only in this scenario 6 months worth of data because that's what's going to be needed for our use case. So we're going to store that in S3. We're going to use Amazon AWS Lambda and Amazon API Gateway. What we're using in the Lambda is we have code, and the code is stored from Node.js, server-side code, and basically what it's doing is it's going to get the data. So it's going to get the CSV, both CSVs, and we have two separate Lambda codes, one for each CSV, and it's going to get the data, and then it's going to create a response. And the reasons why we have Amazon API is to use the post method. Right, so we want to be able to connect that API gateway within our Lambda code. So that way the code can then say, well, what are we going to do with that response? And that response is going to be connected to an endpoint within our pipelines. And so for those that are new in the audience, have not witnessed or understand what pipelines is, very high level, it's our data integration service side of our arm of Quickbase. And what it will allow you to do is basically, if you think about it, just automate some of those manual processes across your siloed data through cloud, right? So that's a really important step here. And then we have Quickbase, our application. So we have two tables in the application, one for our imported line items, and the second will be for our purchase order CSV. Well, let's go to the demonstration. I think this is what everyone's here to see. And let's start, right? So I have here, obviously we can secure this if you wanted to. I just kept it publicly accessible just for this demonstration. But let's just go through what we have here. We're looking at an S3. So we're looking at an S3 bucket. So our Amazon S3 bucket here. And what we see is, this is after, right, we've exported data from our SAP environment, right? So what are we doing once we export that? We're going to store that into a bucket. So this is our data lake. And you can see here we have two CSV files, right? So we have a line items and we have a purchase order. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what we have next. Well, that would be our AWS Lambda. So that's our code. As I mentioned before, right, we want to be able to use this code to get the data from our S3 bucket. And for those that are more professional developers that are, close to the IT teams that are using code in their day-to-day, right? This is one avenue that you can use to, export or extend some of these services into Quickbase. I should highlight, this is not the only way to have this work. This is just an example that we use. And let's look at the code that we have, right? So obviously I'm not going to go too deep into everything, but I want to just highlight some important parts. This code here, as we can see, right, we're storing that CSV from that S3 bucket. And the cool thing about this code is we can actually use SQL commands. So once we have that CSV, there's probably going to be multiple columns there. There might be certain values within that data set that we actually want to pull. I use a SQL command that's allowing me to select the status column and just pull the review sections, right? So another layer that's actually really powerful here. And we also have a secondary or another function from our Lambda, right? So the exact same thing. I don't have to really go too detailed into this. It's the exact same code. The only difference is that we have our line items, right? So as mentioned before, two separate functions for our line items. This is our API gateway. This is what we use to use the post method, and we store that in each of our Lambda codes, as you can see. So that's what's going to happen once we create that response. And before I hit the response and show you that, I just want to go to pipelines, and I'm going to do it all together at once. So let me refresh this page, get pipelines activated, and I'm going to do that for both. And sorry if I kind of moved a little bit quick for those that might be lagging. I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to go back to one of the pipelines sections here. So we have our Empower purchase order pipeline, right? You can obviously manipulate this, change this to whatever title pipeline that you want. And for those that are new to pipeline, again, I want to preface, if this is the first time you've seen this, let me just kind of give you a brief, explanation of what you're seeing. So to the right, we have channels, right? So when we're thinking about data integration, we're thinking about automating our workflow, right? There's going to be data that's going to be stored in other systems or other services that we have. And on the right, we have native channels that are, we have partnership with Quickbase Pipelines, right? So I'm going to name a few channels that most customers use. This Quickbase channel here is used as a way for customers to create logic and automate processes within their own Quickbase application. I would say out of a lot of the channels that are used, you're probably going to have to use this channel. It's very powerful. It's going to help you automate a lot of your workflow processes within Quickbase. A few other channels that we have, and as you can see, you probably can see some other channels that are that'll allow you to create that authentication between some of your services without any hassle. But let's point out Google Suite, right? So this is another important one, right? So customers that are using Google Calendar, Google Contacts, Docs, Drive, Sheets, we have those channels already accessible for you to, gather data from. Also, I should mention Quickbase is bidirectional, so you don't have to necessarily always get data. You can also post data from your Quickbase application into one of these services. We also have Microsoft Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive. I saw our Microsoft Teams commercial the other day, so I know this is heavily used amongst a lot of organizations. So this is great that we have that functionality there. Salesforce, and last but not least, right? So for those that might have looked at the channels and said, well, hey, I don't see my, my service there. I don't see the software that I might want to use to integrate with Quickbase. No worries. We have a webhooks channel, and we also have our APIs that will allow you to connect to your services as long as there's API that allows you to connect within Quickbase. So no hassle there. No worries if you don't see your channel or a channel that represents some of the services that you use. Let's quickly just go through what this pipeline is and what it's doing, right? So pipelines are made up of steps, and each of these steps are going to help orchestrate that data integration. So if we look at this first step, it's incoming CSV. As I mentioned, there's an endpoint, and basically what we have is we take this endpoint and we store that in our Lambda code. So once our Lambda code, along with API Gateway, produces that response, it's going to then take that payload, that CSV payload, and store it into that endpoint. And then the next step is we have a bulk upsert. So we know that we're not probably going to send over one record or two records, right? We might send over hundreds, thousands. We might send a large sum of records over. What this bulk upsert is doing is it's taking that the records and it's preparing that for that bulk upsert. It's preparing for us to, once we elicit this, or once we sync our pipelines, it's going to help just automatically push everything through at once. The next step we have here is we're going to iterate over CSV rows in our records. So we're going to be able to just iterate over the rows, make sure we count the rows, do that process there. And then next is going to tie back in those rows to that bulk upsert. And that's a pretty simple step, right? It's really just going to prepare for that big, integration or that transfer of data. And then the next step we have is we're going to commit to it. So boom, once we have this going, it's going to send straight over to Quickbase. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually sync both of these. I'm going to sync this. And when I'm syncing this, and to mention, right, this pipelines is also the same as the other one. The only difference is, again, I should preface is that since we have two CSVs, we're just having one pipeline for each, but the exact same layout. So I selected sync. And why I'm doing that is I want to be able to sync my pipeline to this response in Lambda. So once I hit test, Quickbase is going to submit a response. Sorry about that. 1 second. Our Lambda code is going to submit a response, and essentially it's going to allow us to start with that data transformation, that data integration. So we see here response. That's great. That's what we want. Again, same thing. We have a response. Quickbase is running. See how quickly that ran, right? It's already going through. So let's hop into our Quickbase application. And while Pipelines is pulling that information in, for those of you, this is first time maybe looking at Quickbase, let's kind of go over what it is, right? So at a very high level, right, we're in-memory proprietary relational database. And the first thing you're going to see here is our new dashboard. So if anybody in the audience has looked at some other sessions, I know this has been heavily spoken about amongst our internal group, and it's something to be very, very excited about. Reasons being is, well, one of the things is we can customize the view, right? It's modern, it's sleek, it's intuitive, right? So it's very easy for you to then go in and look at some of this data and and be able to see things across your business at a high level, right? I've created this dashboard amongst a role. So against a role, this role would be for an operations manager. So if we wanted to customize this dashboard for an employee or some other role that's within the application, that's possible. We have here, it's starting out at 0. So obviously there's no data in here. And we have that ability to drill down. I'm going to get to that in a second. But one thing I want to show is that ability for customization. So let's just take a look at this dashboard widget. And really what this button does is just allows me, once I click on this, to go to an employee dashboard, because I'm the admin in this scenario. And we can see we have a dashboard, we have a widget button, right? So we have a button that allows us to, we want to customize the name of it. New button here, right? We can do that. That's all possible. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to change it to employee dashboard again. We have actions that we can take against the particular button. And for just a quick thing here, let's just change this to change the color of the button, right? So let's go to purple. And in case, for those that are color specific, we use hex code. So if you want to import the ID there, you can do that and it will automatically go. So don't feel like you're limited to these colors. There are more colors that you can put in there as well. W3 Schools is a good source if you're looking to find those codes. I'm going to select that to update the widget. We changed it from blue to green, from blue to purple. So that is also one functionality there. Let's just check to see what's going on. Finished, right? So I'd probably say that probably took maybe 45 seconds or so for that to process through. But while we were talking about the dashboard, let's go and hit refresh. Let's see what happens. Look at that, right? So this is awesome. We had no data in there. And obviously from that transition, right, now we have data that's showing, it's populated. These reports, again, are customizable, as I mentioned. They're drill down. Let's just drill down into one option, right? Quickbase is going to, based off of the selection of that pie chart and the records that we want to pull, we can actually see the related records into that pie chart. So again, pretty high level here, but just want to make sure for those that are new to Quickbase, some of the functionality. Let's go back to the dashboard. And again, each of these are drilled down. And let's just go to the really cool thing here, right? So we have some filters up here. We want to select January. And because our inventory has different types of steel, let's just select alloy. Let's apply that. And we can see the data is changing. And it's against those two primary values within the filters. So really cool stuff, really neat. And I know there's other sessions that are going to go deeper into the dashboard, but just wanted to kind of highlight that quickly. Let's get back to the flow of our data in the use case. So we have the two tables, and we also have separate tables at the top, I should say, as well, for relating the data within our application. And because I'm in the admin view, I have sorts of tables that are related to my role. As you'll see later, when I switch to another role, this will actually change and you won't see anything. So the purpose there is we're talking security. We want people to only have access to certain information in the application. That is all possible. Let's go to purchase orders view. And if we look at our purchase orders, right, so we've extracted that data from SAP, stored it into our S3 bucket, and let's just view one of the purchase orders. Again, right, so I think John alluded to the customization, the features that we can do with our forms. These are just selected fields that we decided to use in this scenario, but if we want to go and actually remove a field, right, let's just remove this checkbox field. Boom, that's gone, right? If we wanted to add a field, same process, right? We'd right click, add a field, I'm not going to go through that right now, but that is all possible. If you want to adjust and customize the form, that's possible as well. Let's take a look at what's going on here, right? So we have purchase orders that are related to the customer, and then we have those related line items. So Quickbase in the backend, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, is what it's doing is it's relating those exact purchase orders to those exact line items to those purchase orders. And within this role, one of the cool things that we're going to do is we want to make sure when the customer is asking, is looking to purchase particular steel within our inventory, well, we obviously don't want to say this customer is able to order this and we don't have it available. So what we're doing here is we want to be able to match what's been ordered to what we have available in our inventory. And what we did here is we just created an internal section for the users of this application. And what happens is all they're doing is really they're looking at this and they're saying, okay, customer ordered X amount. So they ordered 17,000 pounds of this steel. And do we have enough inventory? It looks like we do, right? So this is the amount that we have for this particular steel. This is what's after. And here's what we have for percentages. So this 1% is equating to this amount here, and 99% is what we have left for inventory. I'm going to hit available, and that's just going to start that workflow. And what we have in the backend is we do have notifications to show that. I'll get to that in a second. But the process here is we just want to be able to go through these line items and show that they match the inventory. So I'm just going to quickly go and I'm going to do that for you. So we obviously know that matches, enough inventory available. And each time we do that, we have coloration to that, so it can show that it's green and it's showing that it's available. And that's good. Green is good. And once this hits 4, we'll see something that shows different on that form. All right, so awesome. We use the summary field from the line items table to show once it hits 4, mark this complete. So we could not mark this purchase order complete unless if we marked off that inventory was available. We're going to then showcase that internally, the refinery operator, which is taking care of this process here, what they're going to do is once they mark complete, this is going to get sent to our customer, so that way they can see this related purchase order. So before I do that, I'm going to go in here, refresh this, and this is just a pipeline that's made to make sure that once we update that record, it's going to be sent to an Outlook. Here we go. And we're going to hit mark complete. And the next step that will happen is this purchase order will then be available for that related primary contact on this purchase order. So let's go and pretend that we're the customer. And I'm going to refresh this. Let's just see what's going on here. A second. Wait for that to update. I can go back and I can review this and make sure that's closed, so that way that it's triggered. And let's go quickly here. Make sure the pipeline is working. Well,
I think we can still showcase a little bit of what that customer dashboard looks like, right?
Yeah,
we showcase some. Yeah, let's touch on that to show them how when you have a customer in there, right, and a customer gets a notification and they click on that link to see all their orders, they're going to have their own custom dashboard, and Brian can kind of show you that.
Yep. So let's go to that. and we'll show a custom dashboard. Let me just go into, oops, not here.
And here you can see all those users that we have as part of that application.
This is going to show a user, right? So what we did do here is this gives access to that customer. So upon completion of their particular purchase order, they will have a view into their related purchase order, right? So again, we talked about how the tables above were no longer going to be visible based off of a certain view. So as we see here, there's no tables. And if we look down, this customer is only able to see the purchase orders that are related to them. So let's look at the line items. And let's look at some of the data that's here. Give me a second. I'll do this.
I think the last area, Bryant, we can hit on is just how that would look on a mobile experience, right, for the customer.
We could do that
with that dashboard.
Yeah. All right. So if the customer wanted to see mobile functionality here, they also are able to see that, if they were, for example, on the road, or they wanted just to see their related line items or purchase orders, we do have that capability of showcasing that information, right? So they wouldn't necessarily have to always log on from a desktop. They have that ability from tablet, from a phone, small phone, whatever the case might be for them. So there's accessibility from all angles there. So if we look through everything that we've kind of talked to in today's demonstration, the first thing that we wanted to obviously address is the most important thing, right? Is our ability to extract data from an ERP system such as SAP, store it into an S3 bucket or our data lake, and from there be able to then use, in this scenario, Lambda code, a way to kind of extract that data from our S3 and then create a response to then send to our pipeline. And then once we get that data, which we did show, we're able to then have a dashboard and create some charts and analyze some of that information and have roles that are associated to it. We also are able to show customer viewpoints. If a customer wants to see a particular dashboard related to their purchase orders, that's something that they have accessibility to, and they're able to do that. So yeah, after that, I'm just going to kind of tee it up to John. And if there's any other questions after this for me, feel free to ask away. So thanks.
Awesome demo, Bryant. Thank you for showcasing all that information. I'm going to come back and we'll share our screen again. And let me just pop that back. So yes, really what that demo showcased is, hey, how can we integrate to AWS? How can you start unlocking that data that lives in your data lake? We then showed you how you can use pipelines to get that information out. We also showcased our insights layer with the new dashboard and custom capabilities like that. Brian touched on two different roles, right? The operations manager and the customer in there, and how they're not able to, how a customer is not able to see things that we specifically want only to our internal folks. And leads to the last thing of, you can actually use Quickbase to deliver customer-facing workflows. I want to quickly hit on in the last minute or two here before people jump, where the future of AWS and Quickbase is heading. Really exciting on our AWS marketplace front, right? Many customers that already have AWS and are working with that, we are now working to get Quickbase listed on the marketplace so that you can purchase our software and our offering right through that admin console. Very excited, kind of streamlined way to get you access to a no-code platform to kind of help that strategy. On the other front, on pipelines, we are always building new channels. And one of the areas that we're working on right now is a direct channel to connect you to S3. So if you have information in there, you can use S3 in a no-code way, right, to access that information. For all of our professional developers and IT folks in the audience, I think the Lambda route and using tools like that is still a great way for you to work in the areas that you know. And then we're also building tools to help our citizen integrators get there. And then on the bottom, this is a really fun one actually that I liked a lot, is building additional applications in the serverless library of AWS. So we can actually have custom applications that are made and deployed to that library where you can plug them in to your Quickbase app. One of the ones that a team member of ours, Chris Blakis, built is a sentiment analyzer. Now you can use this and apply it to different text fields in your application and be able to essentially sort out, hey, is that comment a good, a bad, or an indifferent style sentiment? And the last thing today, I'll recap on our overall plan and what we touched on. You learned about operational agility and why your company needs it. You've learned about the critical components to a big data strategy from Chintan and learning how AWS can help there. You've also learned about why no-code platforms are needed in today's world, right? And in the bottom two, you've learned about how to extend these benefits of your data lake to not just your IT team, but also getting your business team involved and how to do that. And then you can also figure out how to build automated processes with Quickbase. And lastly, Brian took us through a fabulous demo of, several different areas to showcase how that works. And, I know we are over time. We've got a bunch of good questions in the Q&A. We are going to reply to them in the Empower Slack channel. So Empower 2021 sessions-QS. We'll reply to some there. Until we get kicked off, I'll answer as many as I could. So James Weaver, you asked about, hey, how can we use AWS to overcome table size limits in QB? The first thing I'd say is, Quickbase does have table size limits like any type of application. We're going to have limitations there. The best thing to do is really to keep that data skinny on the way in, right? Hey, what are the core pieces of information that you need? You don't want to put in superfluous information like a username, a first name, and a last name. Maybe bring in just that user ID and have another table with all of that extra metadata that you can join up. That's probably the first tidbit. And then I think there are some archiving strategies that I've seen customers do too, right? Maybe you don't need all of that. Maybe you don't need 7 years of data in one table. Sometimes we have our customers actually be able to store that older data in a different table or migrate it out. And then Chintan, I think you had some good ideas as well as we were talking in our chat here about how you might be able to handle different data sizes.
Correct. So as you saw it in the demo, right? When you connect to S3 data lake, right, there is a way you can extract the data, right? So you can use S3 select to pull only the required data. And you can apply various filter criteria before you pull actual data. And this will help you to limit the size of the data which you pull from S3 data lake to your Quickbase application. In addition to this, you can also do other things like John mentioned. You can do archiving and other things as well.
Awesome. I think we'll have time for one more. I saw one in there about, hey, how do the users count if you start including customers in your workflows? Yes, they would count towards your user license count, but many of our customers have been really intrigued and interested in our newer offering about usage pricing, and that kind of unlocks more use cases with the same existing no-code platform. What that does is we're not going to essentially license you based on the number of users that you have in your app. It's more about, hey, how often are people using it, and counting a measure of usage we call reads. So that's a really great way if you're starting to consider, hey, how can we get Quickbase out there for our customer-facing solutions? Sage, you had a couple great questions about timelines and who to involve. I think in terms of getting IT teams understood and learning what Quickbase is, I think we want to get an IT admin to understand it and have a kind of business counterpart understand what that is. And then for IT teams trying to learn what Quickbase is, I think, the other way around, right? How can a business team member showcase a prototype and an innovative solution, maybe with something like their builder account program? For those of you in the audience, we have a free and always free builder account that you can use and create applications. We're going to get kicked off here in a minute. I'd love to have us kind of move any questions over to that Slack channel. We'll take them there. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending and joining our AWS and No Code How to Make Big Data Accessible.